Ciao e benvenuto, or hello and welcome. My name is Jamie. I am here to introduce you to opera, which is an important part of European history. Opera is fascinating and entertaining, but it is often overlooked as historically significant. I would like to introduce you to a few of my favorite operas, opera history, and a few fun facts of the genre. I hope you love it as much as I do. Let's begin with the definition of opera. Opera is a classical piece of music that tells a story through song, often using fairy tales or mythology as a theme. Opera is important to European history because history isn't just about exploration and wars, it's also about how people grow and evolve in the arts. Sometimes opera is associated with Vikings or fat ladies singing, the Phantom of the Opera, being an Italian, or being a tragedy. These stereotypes aren't true. All types of people perform opera. It can be sung in most any language and can be a comedy as well as a tragedy. And The Phantom of the Opera isn't really an opera, it is a musical, which is different and confuses a lot of people. There are two big differences between operas and musicals. Musicals use singing, acting, and dancing in their work. Opera uses very little dance and usually has no spoken dialect. Also, opera uses only projected voice. There are no microphones. Some opera terminology is listed, and you can pause this video to copy these words in a notebook. A few that are mentioned later in this video are opera buffa, or comedic opera, opera seria, the serious opera, and aria, the emotional song of the singer. Now, on with the show. To understand opera history, we have to go all the way back to the 1600s, beginning with the Florentine Camerata. The Florentine Camerata was a group of men who gathered together to talk about the arts, mainly music and drama. They believed that the ancient Greeks used to sing their plays and tragedies, and there opera was born. Opera has continued to flourish, entertaining people for centuries. In particular, opera has been popular in three main eras: the Baroque, the Classical, and Romantic. The Baroque era spanned from 1600 to 1750. Many exciting things happened in the world during this time: the founding of the Americas, the translation of the King James Bible, and the building of the Taj Mahal. This era, sometimes called the Age of Enlightenment, is known for its many scientific discoveries, such as Newton's law of gravity and Galileo's study of the planets. There are many names you may recognize in the arts in this era, including William Shakespeare, the playwright, Johann Sebastian Bach, the composer, and Rembrandt, the painter. The Baroque era is also the beginning of opera. Here is a sample. Due to the discovery of Pompeii, Baroque artists were fascinated with the ancients. Baroque opera focused mainly on Greek and Roman tragedies as their topics. One composer from the Baroque is Henry Purcell. Born in 1659, Purcell is considered one of the finest composers of his time. He worked and performed for 3 different kings over 25 years. One of his best-known compositions is Dido and Aeneas, the story of a Trojan prince and the Queen of Carthage and how they fall in love. The song you heard earlier is an aria from this work. Dido and Aeneas is a good example of Baroque opera because it is based in ancient tragedy. You can read the full story of Dido and Aeneas in Virgil's Aeneid. My favorite era is the Classical period, from 1750 to 1825. The Classical era also looked back to the ancient Greeks and Romans for inspiration. Many things, including clothes, architecture, and government, were styled after the Romans. Even the United States Constitution, written during this time, is modeled after certain Roman ideals. Other things happening in the world included the abolishment of the British slave trade, the American Revolution, and Napoleon ruling as Emperor of France. Jane Austen wrote beautiful love stories. George Washington was the first president of the United States, and Marie Antoinette set fashion in France. In music, there are 3 main players: Ludwig van Beethoven, Franz Joseph Haydn, and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Here is a piece from one of Mozart's operas. Mozart is the classical composer almost everyone knows, and with good reason. Being a child prodigy, he began writing music and performing at the age of 6. He composed his first opera at 12 and continued writing in every genre of his day until his death in 1791 at 35. He composed more than 600 pieces of music, including Les Nozze de Figaro. Les Nozze de Figaro, or The Marriage of Figaro, is an opera buffa, or comedy, about a man named Figaro who's getting ready to be married. Seems pretty simple, right? Maybe not. This opera has several stories going on at once. It is a humorous and tangled tale of love and secrets. My favorite character, a young page named Cherubino, whose aria you just heard, is in love with just about every woman in the palace, which is always getting him into trouble. It is such a busy opera, but it's so much fun to watch. I highly recommend it to anyone wanting to discover opera. As you have seen, classical opera differs from Baroque in that it introduces new and more modern topics and comedy. Likewise, composers are experimenting with more modern languages. Finally, the Romantic era, also known as the Victorian Age, spanned the reign of Queen Victoria of England, which included almost the entire 19th century from 1825 to 1910. At its peak, 1/4 of the world belonged to England, and many exotic things were spread around the globe. The telephone, the phonograph, and the railroad system were invented. Motion pictures were created. Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell moved the world forward. Women were also inspired to get out and take a stand. Susan B. Anthony fought for women's rights, and Clara Barton served her country as a nurse in the Civil War. Everything is getting bigger and better, and so is opera. Here is a taste of romantic opera. As you can guess by the name, the era of Romanticism focused on things that appealed to the emotion and intuition. The Baroque and Classical eras celebrated intellect and discovery. The Romantic era followed these discoveries with the inventions of the imagination and ingenuity. Richard Strauss, not to be confused with composer Johann Strauss Sr. or Strauss Jr., is a German-born composer best known for his operas like Elektra and his tone poems like Don Juan. Strauss, along with Richard Wagner, is credited with helping to create German Romanticism in music. His opera, Der Rosenkavalier, or The Bearer of the Rose, is a German opera with a tangled love story that is so beautiful and fun. It has many characters who fall in and out of love and are often star-crossed. Many times, operas have multiple layers of plot, which make them very fun to watch unravel. Opera is a beautiful genre of music that can be enjoyed by people of all ages. It is performed all over the world and by many wonderful singers, including Luciano Pavarotti, Diana Damrau, Lucia Pop, and Sarah Connolly. Loving opera has helped me to appreciate music more, and it has also helped me to appreciate Europe's rich history. Thank you for watching this video. I had so much fun telling you about this genre of music that I love, and I hope you enjoyed as well. If you enjoyed this introduction to opera, look for my other videos about this exciting and entertaining feature of European history. Arrivederci!